The Power Factor Show with Rick, Steve, and Caleb. Episode 61, Part 1.
You can find this podcast and others at Gun Rights Radio Network, gunrightsradio.com. Podcasting freedom.
Brought to you by Safariland.
So welcome back to Power Factor. I'm Steve, and today I'm joined by John Larson and Jay Burleson. Today we're going to talk shotguns. Now, just kind of to set the stage here, I started shooting shotguns at a very early age, primarily as a means for hunting with my dad. First shotgun was a Remington Model 31 and 16 gauge. I later progressed on to 12 gauge later on in my life. Shotguns pretty much consistently up until the early 90s, at which point I kind of caught the IPSC bug. Ran with that for about 20 years or so, right up until kind of like last year, which I started realizing I really wasn't having fun shooting IPSC much anymore. Pretty much the onset of IPSC burnout. If you're interested, maybe more of a discussion about that, I did a podcast for Bob Main's program, Handgun World. I think it was episode 149, 148, somewhere there about competition burnout. So you might go back and check that out. There's more of a discussion there, and I'm sure our producer can probably put a link up. So. At any rate, so last year, achieving burnout, I decided I was going to go back and start shooting shotguns again. And since I was really effectively starting all over, I'm having to deprogram 20 years of pistol shooting and going back to shotgun shooting, which is a little bit of a challenge. So, but at any rate, so my intention now is strictly to be an enthusiast. I'm doing it recreationally. I have no interest whatsoever in getting involved in competition shotgun shooting. I'm just out there having fun. So we've been kind of receiving a lot of comments in the last few months since I've been commenting more about interest in shotguns, and people have been asking for information on shotguns, and that kind of spurred the idea here of starting a series on shotgun shooting. So since I'm kind of effectively starting all over again, I decided to bring some experts onto the program, and that's where John and Jay fit in. So.
That's Jay.
So why don't we start out, John? You and I have been shooting shotguns here recently, but why don't you kind of give your background with respect to shotgun shooting?
Fairly limited. I've been shooting shotgun probably something like 3.5 to maybe 4 years. I got started because I made a promise to Sue that I would go out and shoot shotgun with her and put her off.
Good.
A couple, 3 times, and then I finally felt guilty about it. So I had to go, and it's just a lot of fun. I got sick 2.5 years ago, and I could not go out and shoot a pistol match. I couldn't be on the range for that length of time. Mm-hmm. But I could go to the range and I could shoot shotgun. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy it. And like you, I shot IPSC for like 15 years. We were both officers, if you will,
right.
in the section
That's true.
Committee. And you kind of quit that one just a little bit before I did.
Yeah.
But, and like you, I just didn't want to spend that kind of time, shooting a pistol match and waiting for Saturday or Sunday to go shoot a pistol match.
Right.
So I just started shooting trap, and like Jay says, well, that's the entry drug to the sport, because once you start that, then you'll go on to other things. So I've been through more shotguns than I should have by now.
No.
There's
really.
No such thing.
You're a piker.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I try to get out at least once a week if the weather's good. Sometimes I'll try and get out twice a week. Mm-hmm. If there's like a weekday is really good, I'll go out and play and then work a day on the weekend to make up for that.
Right.
But I find it to be a lot of fun. You don't have to wait till match day. You can go out, you can shoot usually like 4 rounds of some game or a couple of rounds of a couple of games, and then still go to lunch with the folks that you're with and still be home by 3 o'clock.
Right.
And that's not starting early either.
No, it's starting like 11 o'clock or noon or whatever it is that we start.
It's real enjoyable to me. And then I like reloading also. Yeah. Because I'm sick.
Yeah.
And
we're going to do probably an episode at some point in the future on shotgun reloading too, kind of similar to what Rick and I did, of going through the, why you do it, the benefits of it, and so on and so forth. So you'll be seeing that in the future too. So, okay, Jay, what's your life history in terms of...
Never really shot trap much at all, actually, until 10 years ago I started working at Renton Fish and Game Club as the shotgun range master, and sort of by osmosis found all of a sudden I had several nice shotguns in my safe, that the deals were too good to pass up, and started shooting when I can, when I'm not working, and As John said, it's you can do it any time. I'm by competition-wise, I'm a cowboy action shooter, so I did that for many weekends a month for many years, and then when I started working weekends, that was out, so I had to find some outlet to at least shoot, and I could do it when it was quiet at the range. I could go out and pop a couple rounds of trap off and stuff like that, and then just meeting so many people at the shotgun range and talking with them and quizzing them on how to do it and what to do, and seeing so many different guns come through there has really enriched my education. That's one thing, no matter what kind of interest you've got in shotgunning, just come out to your local range, even if you're not going to shoot that day, and chat with the folks there. Look at their guns, ask them what they paid for it, and what they like and don't like about it, and stuff like that. And everybody will be more than happy to tell you about it. And probably a lot of them have guns in the safe that they want to sell.
Yeah, that seems to be typically the case, pretty much so. So I think the thing that you pointed out that I really enjoy about it is that it's a lot more relaxed atmosphere than the competition, venues and everything. Is that you can go out there and it's a lot more social.
You don't have to go prone.
Right. That's
in the mud.
Or get up on your knees or anything like that. Yeah. However, I think, not from the level that I've done it, but trap shooting tends to be a little more, I'm going to say, less social than skeet or whatever, because people
because
don't.
You have to be quiet.
Your head's in the game.
Which depends on the range. If they have voice releases, you can't talk.
Right.
Because then you start launching targets.
Right.
But skeet is, most fun.
Yes, it is. Yeah, as we've found out.
And the shooting's okay too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so today we're going to pretty much talk shotguns of typically what you're going to see in the clay games. So we're not going to get into, tactical 3-gun stuff, because that's not where we're going with this. We're not going to talk about, bolt action shotguns that you would use for, I don't know what, turkey hunting? I don't know what they use them for, but at any rate.
Not much anymore.
Yeah, we're primarily going to be talking about the different shotguns you're going to see in either trap or skeet or sporting clays or 5-stand or whatnot. So Jay, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. In the day, the good old Winchester Model 870.
Winchester?
Or, excuse me.
Remington.
Remington 870, or the
Winchester Model 12.
Model 12 from Winchester, and the Remington 1100 semi-auto. Between the Model 12 and the Model 1100, probably more trap competitions were won by those two guns than all the other guns manufactured combined. They were it for trap and skeet competition back in the day, because they worked well, they were built well, they'd last forever with just some minor parts put together. So you can't go wrong with a basic pump shotgun. That's usable in most all of the games. It does take a little more work for any game that requires 2 shots, like skeet, where you've got to do follow-up shots, or some of the other games. You just have to work with it to get better at pumping smoothly, so you're not jerking the gun all over the place. But don't let a $250 Remington Express 870 that you can find at sporting goods stores stop you from coming out and shooting shotgun. It will work. This particular one is set up with a high rib, or a rib on it. So it is more of a target gun compared to the basic ones, which just have a barrel and a bead on the end of it. The principle is still the same. It's just a little bit easier to see the sight radius when the gun gets hot with a rib on it, and it draws your eye off the barrel better than just the straight round barrel with that. But pump shotguns are more than effective for that. There's basically 3 different types of shotguns out there. I'm going to get a little basic, but just make sure everybody knows about it. You've got a pump shotgun, you've got semi-automatic shotguns, and you've got break opens, which could be a couple of different varieties. And there's a wide price range within any of those groups for what you can find and what you can buy. It's not always the case that the most expensive is the best. Shotgunning really has a big deal with the gun fit. How it fits you is really, really important. So sometimes a gun that fits you better, no matter what the price is the one you're going to shoot better.
So I was going to say, in terms of shotgun fit, how important is shotgun fit to you, and have you had your shotguns professionally fit to you?
I haven't had them professionally fit. I would like to, but it's not inexpensive.
Right.
To have either a stock made or somebody to carve on the stock they've got. If I were to do it, I would have a stock made for me.
Right.
Because then I could still keep the original stock, put it back on the gun.
Good point. Right.
And sell it
right.
there instead of
having a customized
having to find
stock.
somebody that looks
just like you.
me.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But newer shotguns, especially the semi-autos nowadays, have some adjustments coming from the factory that allow you to tailor it to you more so than they used to. And the more expensive over and under types, you can get them with adjustments to help it fit you. And there's also parts that you can buy to put on the buttstock and things that will help adjust it and fit to get it to fit you better. But it is very important, because that's one thing that people don't think about with shotguns. If you pick up a shotgun and look at it, can you tell me where the rear sight is? There's a front sight. Sometimes there'll be a mid-bead sight, but there's no rear sight. On a shotgun, the rear sight is your eye. So that becomes very critical when you put a shotgun up to your face, how and where that face sits to adjust your rear eye. Just by moving a little bit, I'm looking right down the rib like I'm supposed to, but as soon as I move my face to where it's comfortable for me on this gun, now I'm not. And that's going to put my point of aim, because of my rear eye, off from the point of impact of the gun. So that's where gun fit becomes very, very important with the shotgun, and consistency of the mount when you put it up. If you're messing around every time you shoot, that gun's going to be flopping this way every time you set up for a shot, and you're not going to hit in the same place every time.
And for shotguns that don't have or don't fit or whatever, you might, like your adjustable comb there on your Synergy, you can get. I mean, some guns will come with that, or you can go off and get aftermarket ones, put onto your shotgun or whatever to get the fit down so it properly fits the shooter.
Yeah, and you can get stock adjusters also, which is basically the ones that I put on a couple of guns, which there's over there someplace, is the brand name is 100 Straight, and you take the pad off. It's 2 aluminum plates. One of them would screw to the stock. The other one would have the pad on it. You can grind them to fit so they look good.
Right.
But the adjustment you can get out of that, you can move the pad itself either up or down. And some of them you can move sideways a little bit, but you can also change the cant on it.
Right.
So what you can do with that is, being right-handed and having a little bit of cast off and a little bit of toe out, which is the bottom of the stock out, canted, you can get more of that. And that will let you lay the stock right in your shoulder pocket. And like Jay was talking about, consistency and getting the gun in the same place every time, let alone getting your eye where it needs to be. You can adjust those things.
Right. Just in terms of dimensional references on a shotgun, they have what's called drop-it comb, which is basically this point here relative to, I believe it's the center of the barrel, the top of the barrel, or
sometimes it's like the top of the rib,
right,
or the top of the barrel.
So you have drop-it comb, drop-it heel, and then toe, and then they'll have pitch, which is basically, if you take the gun and stick it like this, it's how many degrees angle. So you can see that this one is slightly tilting this way, which is pretty normal for most shotguns. And I don't know if that's positive, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And then there's cast on and cast off, which is basically the angle of the stock, or the reference of the stock here relative to the center line. So for most right-handed shooters, you're going to want to have cast off, which basically puts the stock slightly, or the toe slightly that way. Right. For left-handed shooter, it's the other direction. But it really depends on the structure, the bone structure of the shooter. If somebody has more of a meaty face or whatever, a stock with a lot, you're going to need more effectively cast off to move the stock this way to get the eye relative to the
center of the barrel.
Right, exactly.
Center of the rib,
so there's a lot of adjustments that can be done. Some people are just lucky and it fits, but most of us aren't. So it's really critical that if you are shotgun shooting, that you get a gun, or at least try to adjust it so that your eye is over the in line with the barrel. So at any rate,
But all that being said, doesn't mean you can't just show up with a factory
True.
gun and
Right.
do okay.
And have fun.
And
Yeah.
have a lot of fun,
Yeah.
It's just as you start to get better, want to get better, and getting your consistency up, then that's where you'll find that making the gun fit you a little better will help tremendously. And it can be as expensive as you want it to be, like the 100 straight stock adjuster that John was talking about is only like $80 or so.
Yeah.
no, that's not bad at all.
And,
No,
yeah,
wow.
it's pretty inexpensive, and it doesn't have to be professionally fit.
I know, because I did.
It may
I did
not
too.
fit. Yeah, it may not fit perfectly, but you could put it on there and it would still function. It just won't quite look as well.
And the only time you're going to tell if it's perfect or not is if you have the plates in line so you can see everything. Because
Right.
once the plates are probably where
You
you're going to
can't
leave it
tell.
when you shoot,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you won't see all those pieces together.
The biggest thing that I see that people that are using field model shotguns, which are hunting guns or things that weren't specifically made
Yeah.
to shoot clays competitively, is when they go and put it up to their shoulder, they put it in a spot where it's comfortable here, so they're getting all of the meat of the buttstock in where it's not going to hurt them for recoil, and then they just cram their face right down on it. Well, there's two things that happen with that. Number one is now when the recoil goes, it's just going to go right up and smack into your face. And you're cranking your head over, so now when you start to look for targets over there or targets over there, you're in a real cramped position. You should try to keep your eyes as level as possible. And then, because then it makes it easier to see, you're not having to deal with a tilt. And even if that puts the buttstock up off your
Right.
shoulder, it's not going to hurt anywhere near what you think it is, because now the recoil is going straight back. It's sliding along your cheek instead of bouncing up against it and stuff like that. So that's the biggest thing I see. People will just try to cram in like this, and then it's just relax. Get it up where you're looking straight down the rib and go. So the field shotguns have a little more work to do with that than one that's aimed at competitive shotgunning, because again, the measurements that Steve talked about, they'll be way different, not necessarily way different, but a little different in the drop at comb and the drop at heel. You can see this is almost parallel.
So is that a
to the
parallel
rib.
comb?
Yes.
It is, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And parallel
So-
comb, basically, the idea here is instead of having a drop in the comb at the angle, which you can see here how the comb is tapered down, a parallel comb is pretty much flat along the whole entire length of it. Why don't you explain the reasoning behind that?
The reasoning behind that is then it doesn't matter what you've got for the recoil pad or where you put your face on the gun. It's always, your eye's always going to be at the same level. There. That gives you, like I said, if you're going for a snapshot at something, you've got to put it up, get it onto your cheek, and you're going to be there no matter if you're leaning too far forward and got your head forward, or you're leaning backwards for shooting at game or something like that. It's it will always allow your face to be, your eye relative to the rib, the same.
So if somebody's going to ask the question next, well then why don't all shotguns come that way?
Well,
I can hear the people through the camera yelling that question right now. Yeah.
That is a good question. The main reason why it doesn't is because not everybody fits that
Right.
as well.
Yeah.
The drop will accommodate heavy winter clothing if you're duck hunting, and then if you're out doing upland pheasants or something like that with just a thin shirt on, it will help accommodate that with the drop stock.
Angle, yeah.
And tradition is a lot of it.
Right.
That's what looks like a shotgun.
One thing I've heard in terms of parallel comb is that in trap shooting, a lot of people will go with the parallel comb.
And skeet also.
And skeet also,
Yeah.
right. Where basically the games where you have a pre-mounted gun.
Correct.
Where you'll see the angle comb more being used is like sporting clays or whatever, where some people won't run with a pre-mounted gun. The one comment that I heard, which is a little bit out there, is that with a parallel comb stock, if you don't get a good gun mount, mentally you can't sense the fact that the angle is different on the gun. with an angled stock, your brain will say, okay, I can feel that it's different. I'm not in the same place that it was before. And then instantly we'll make up for it and know where to put the barrels above or below to compensate for the fact that it knows that you've got the gun either mounted high or low.
Or if you have something like the sporting gun's got a mid-bead on it,
right,
and you pop the gun up and all of a sudden you've got 3 inches of rib between the beads, something's not right.
Right. Yeah, very true. So, okay, so let's talk gas. No, I don't. This is actually recoil, but we'll call them
inertia.
Semi-autos.
In semi-auto shotguns, there's basically 2 versions that you can get anymore: gas operated and inertia or recoil operated. There's arguments for both. They both work and have been proven to work under extremely high round counts. If you go to South America and hunt doves, which is where, if you do that, would be really fun, but you're going to put, in 4 or 5 days, you're going to put 3,000-4,000 shells in the air. And if you go down there and use one of their shotguns, it's either going to be a Benelli or a Beretta. And
391.
And who knows how, Benelli, Beretta 391 or a Benelli Sport. And who knows how many hundreds of thousands of rounds they've had through them. And they both will stand up. The difference is the cleaning. And Benelli type with the inertia can go longer without cleaning. I've probably got about 10,000 rounds through this gun. And there's some grime in there, but it doesn't affect the gun at all.
I presume you've cleaned it in the last 10,000 rounds.
No, because there's 10,000 rounds with no cleaning.
Oh my God!
Because there's no gas system.
Right. Yeah. There's no gas system to allow anything to come back into the chamber.
Right.
Here, it's all inertia, so the gas is all going out the barrel or the ports there. And the Beretta 391 again is a great gun. But it allows the gas to come back in, so you do have to be a little bit more proactive in keeping it clean. Although I do know somebody who had, when he took his 391 apart, it was so dirty it looked like it had fuzz growing on the trigger assembly, and it still worked. There. So they're both very, very good shotguns.
That's a protective coating.
But the Benelli will be lighter than a 391. It's got less moving parts, so you'll save about a pound of weight if that becomes important to you. That's one of the reasons why I like it. This is a Benelli sporting clays gun designed for specifically for sporting clays activities. I've got an aftermarket weight and mercury recoil reducer on the end of it that changes the balance a little bit and helps absorb a little bit of recoil. And synthetic stock, you can get pieces to change the comb height, and it comes with 2 different butt pads in the factory to change the length.
Does that come with the shims also? For
Yes. Yes, it's kind of hard to see, but in between the buttstock here is a shim. You can take the buttstock off. You can do this with the Berettas as well. And there's different shims that will change both the cast, left or right, as well as the
drop.
The drop there to help it adjust for you. This has pretty much got an extreme amount on both, just because of my build and that. So it probably won't fit any of you guys, especially Steve. But it allows you to tailor the gun to fit you a lot better.
What are you saying? So one thing I'll say in terms of gas versus recoil is that for people who are recoil sensitive, the gas-operated or autoloaders are really popular.
Yes.
At one point, I had a Remington 1187, and with target loads, I mean, it was like you're shooting a 22. There was no recoil to it at all. I mean, it was
with a light trap load on that Benelli or on a 391. You can actually put it on your forehead and pull the trigger.
I've done that.
It's not going to hurt.
Right.
Whereas I wouldn't really want to try it with any of the other stuff. So for a recoil sensitive or a smaller statured shooter, a small woman,
women or junior shooters,
with that, the semi-auto is a great way to go. The drawback to a semi-auto is that there's only one barrel. In a case of doing trap shooting, that's not a problem because you're only shooting one shot at the target at a time. Get into anything else, skeet, sporting clays, things like that, sporting clays especially, where you've got two targets and they can be 50 yards apart between the target distances, you've only got one choke to deal with. So you got to kind of either fix something in the middle or get something that'll hit the far one and hope you're on for the close one with it there. That's really the only drawback with the semi-auto or the pump shotgun.
Single barrel.
Is that you've got a single barrel between the two barrels.
Well, and on an automatic on like American Trap 16-yard, having the empty smack the guy next to you is frowned upon.
Yeah.
So there's different shell catchers that you can use for that, but that's not an issue for doubles on like Continental or doubles on Skeet, because there's nobody around you.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you want to discuss shotgun chokes a bit here? Just the idea behind them, the different chokes ranging from cylinder to, I guess, extra full, and how they're measured, what they do, and so on and so forth.
Okay, chokes. There's a couple different ways you'll get chokes in shotguns. There will be permanent in the barrel. I mean, the barrel is made that way.
So it's fixed choke.
That's a modified.
Yeah, this one happens to be a modified choke in there, and so you can't adjust it. You can't change it without buying another barrel and changing it. As a matter of fact, I did that for a while. I had an older 1100, and I found 4 different barrels with all the chokes that they made.
Wow.
So it was like carrying a golf bag, because every time I went to a sporting clay station, it's like, okay, pull out the full.
So that's an interesting question.
I've got 3 barrels for that one.
If you have an 870 or 1187 or 1100 or whatever that is, and these are choke guns, or I'm sorry, screw and choke guns. Can you go out and get a newer barrel and put it on here?
I did buy a current production barrel, which is a lighter contour, because I wanted something with chokes in it that I did put on that and shoot it for a while.
Okay, so that option is there for you. You don't have to go out and buy. You're not stuck with buying fixed choke barrels. You can go out and buy. Okay, good.
But if you got Uncle George's, shotgun, you might come up with one with a fixed choke.
Right.
And if you really get into 870s, there's quite a following for them, and there's a lot of value based on older barrels, barrels from the 70s that are fixed choke, that people claim just bust targets like there's no tomorrow.
Then when you get into interchangeable chokes, there's 2 different styles of that. Flush choke, which basically does not protrude from the end of the barrel at all. It just exists inside. Or in most competition guns and stuff, you'll have extended chokes that actually extend out the barrel. One of the reasons for those is it gives you more choke dimension in there, to more area for the parallel for it to constrict.
You can get
as well, you can take them off and on very
without
easily.
Tools.
Without
which is nice.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you want to change them, like shooting sporting clays, you come up to a new stand, and the target presentations and distances are all different than what you've been shooting.
For the last one, you can change the choke out very quickly.
So this is the Browning chokes, that set that came with my Synergy. One of the other things is they're plainly marked with what they are, so you can see what they are on the barrel without having to go look down the barrel and figure out what it is and the notch code and stuff. But all a choke does is change the constriction from what the bore size is, the bore diameter is, to a different one. It starts at what's called cylinder, which is 0 constriction. Is basically a cylinder choke is the exact same choke size or diameter size as the barrel, and then it works its way up to full, which is the tightest standard constriction you'll get. What a choke will do, in theory, if your load is correct, is change the diameter of the circle of pellets in the shot string. One of the things that a lot of people that haven't shot shotgun much don't realize, they think that a shot
is
two-dimensional. Shoot it out of there, it's two-dimensional. Just flies out in a flat plane like that. But it's not. It's actually the best analogy I can think of is it's like a globular cluster tapering off on both ends like an ice cream cone.
That's once it's out.
Once it's out of the barrel. So you've got the ones out in front, and then the ones trailing back, and then this larger cluster there. So the cluster size is what gets changed by the chokes. A modified choke, which is the middle range one, is designed to give you about a 30-inch circle on a two-dimensional surface if you shoot it at a target, about a 30-inch circle of pellets at 30 to 32 yards.
Right.
There. So depending on the distance of the target, you can choose your choke to get you what size pattern you want on that. So the further out it is, the tighter choke you go, up to a full choke, and that at 30 yards gives you a smaller dimension.
Right.
But at 50 yards, 40-some
Really
yards, it
opens it
will equal that 30-inch circle out there. Because the wider, a lot of people think, oh, well, if I throw the widest choke I can, I got more
I'll hit
chances.
everything. Yeah,
I got more chances of pellets hitting it.
Yeah.
And targets flying through.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. There's only a finite number of pellets in a shotgun, around 340 some in a 1 ounce,
give or
ounce and
take,
8 load.
Depending on the
Yeah, 7.5. And when you start expanding that, you start getting holes in the pattern that you could be center punching that target, but there's enough space in that cluster where there's no pellets that it just sails right through the target and doesn't break it. The target typically will need more than one pellet. It will typically need 8-9 pellets.
That many? Really? I didn't know
to
that.
break it
Okay.
cleanly. You
Yeah.
might break a chip off or something like
Oh,
that.
when
with
you
one or
see
two.
just dust come off the
Yeah.
back of one, you
Yeah.
say, okay, well, that wasn't quite right.
Yeah.
You'll see that every once in a while. You'll see a little puff of dust, and you'll see the target change
Right.
its attitude. No, you just skimmed it with something.
But you didn't break it.
Right.
So, Jay, one of the other things I have heard about chokes is that the tighter chokes, like full, for example, have an impact on what the shot distribution is within the pattern itself. For given your 30-inch pattern, that you'll have more pellets towards the center of that
hot core,
rather
so
than
to
being
speak. Yeah.
rather than being out at the edges.
Well, if you're talking,
And we're talking theoretical again.
yeah, are you
Yeah.
talking compared to 30 yards in
Yeah.
that 30-inch circle?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. At the same distance, the tighter choke you go, from a modified to improved modified, which is tighter, to a full, then you'll see the density of the pellets shrinking in that 30-inch circle. You'll still have some leakers out there with that, but the density creeps towards the center. But then if you take that target and put it at 45 yards, now all of a sudden
It'll
you're
open
back
up.
to the almost exact same looking pattern as a modified at 30 yards gives a full.
So that would be one of the reasons why you'd want to shoot different chokes at different games depending on distance
Right.
for the pattern that you want.
Right.
Now, something
Exactly.
interesting there is I saw a article by Gil Ash here recently. Gil Ash is one of the instructors of OSP, which is Optimal Shooting Performance, I believe. I hope I got that
Don't
right.
look at me, I'm not an optimal shooter.
And he did a comparison on chokes, different chokes at different distances. And what he did is he took a given choke and shot a target at, say, 15, 20, 25, 30, and so on.
Yeah.
And you can see literally the shape of the pattern. And cylinder, improved cylinder, has your typical cone. So he has what we refer to as a kill zone, number of pellets that are in the circle, and it basically fans out, and then it drops off dramatically as you go in distance. Modified was the interesting exception to all these, in that it starts out, expands, and it stays consistent for a very long distance and then contracts. Full did something similar, but it kind of came out and then tapered back down. But Modify was really interesting in that it had a very long kill distance for the given choke. So that's why you've heard a lot of people say, well, if you're going to run with one choke, just put Modified in and go with it.
Yep.
And that may be the reason why. So since we're in the barrel, let me just ask you this question real quick. A lot of companies come out with, or what was the rage years ago, is backboring. You know, everybody was backbored, and the intent was to reduce recoil. So once you, I don't know if backboring, if it's just a marketing hype thing, or if it really does do anything.
Yeah, and blend in forcing cones too.
Yeah, since it's right there.
Well, it may be that it's marketing, but every high-end shotgun manufacturer does it.
Yeah, probably because they have to, so they can say it there. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't know. I've not had a comparable gun that's never, not been backboard
Right.
at all, and shot with it to compare it to. The theory goes, and the press releases go, that backboring the shotgun will give you less recoil because you're giving a much more tapered intro for the wad containing the shot before it hits the barrel diameter.
Okay.
It would be basically like a forcing cone stretched way out.
Okay.
There, basically to taper the shot so you're not slamming it right into the
So
bore diameter.
is backboring It's not doing the forcing cones, but it is basically opening up the bore from like a standard 725 or 729 to something bigger than
730
that.
something, and this is 12 gauge.
742 for a Browning.
Right.
I'm trying to remember what my...
I
don't have that list here, but anyway, most of the Berettas, Brownings, most of the bigger shotguns, they do not have the standard 725 bore diameter, that industry standard for 12 gauge. Since we're throwing out that 725 number, that's 12 gauge. With that, the back boring is done on the whole length of the barrel. Forcing cone is just after the chamber. To use that. So again, it's not keeping by opening that whole barrel up to a little bit larger, but then your components of your shell, the wad, all that kind of stuff, are spec for 725.
Right.
Then, like I said, it's easing its way down the barrel a little bit, so you're not compressing everything together. In the old days, before plastic wads, basically you had unprotected shot between two felt wads, and they were just kind of rattling their way down the barrels, more or less, and
banging into the wall.
And flattening themselves.
You didn't want to have it any bigger behind because that gave it a chance to expand.
Right.
And now you've got more surface area for more pellets to be hitting the wall and deforming and stuff. But now the wad completely encapsulates the shot while it's still in the barrel. So it's completely protected by the plastic wad there. So they can make it open up and it allows just a smidgen more surface area on the front of the shot column.
One of the things I've read on back boring too is that it opens the bore up so that the transition from the chamber diameter through the forcing cone to the bore diameter is not a greater reduction, so that it does not deform as many pellets or as much. So the benefit's supposed to be that you have better patterns from that.
Better patterns and a little bit less recoil because again you're not forcing something to get shrunk down as it goes through the barrel immediately as much. Then the opposite end is the chokes. The tighter choke you go, there's a guy I know that was using what would be the equivalent of a 16 gauge barrel size in his 12 gauge with the extra full choke that he had on there.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah,
it was Travis.
With that, so he was using a super full, what they call a turkey choke, which basically gave you the tightest possible pattern you can get. But boy, his shotgun kicked like a mule because it was slamming into that choke and just everything wasn't screaming to a halt, but it certainly was giving you that whump there as it goes through the choke, and you can definitely feel it there. But you really won't feel much in the full choke versus the cylinder as far as that. It's just too small of it. But most chokes will have a narrow entry, and then they'll have a parallel section, which is the actual constriction somewhere in there. Then it'll open back up right at the end to allow it to come back out. So that parallel section is the important part that gives you the choke dimension and changes it. It's amazing, only a few thousandths of an inch will radically change the pattern.
A lot of them are like only 5 thousandths.
Right, 5 thousandths difference between the...
You wouldn't think it would do much
but it does.
But it does,
Okay, let's move down the line here. So we talked about the pumps, the semi-autos, we talked brake action.
Yeah, we've got 4 different brake actions here. There is a fifth one, which I didn't have to demonstrate.
I sold mine, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. But anyway, field model, the...
Satori Lightning, Browning Satori Lightning.
Satori Lightning there. Field model, again, perfectly good, but it is designed as a hunting gun. It's got a shorter barrel, 28 28-inch barrels.
And it has a really flat rib, too.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Not a lot of difference on the rib height over the barrel, just a little bit.
Boy, we could get into a discussion about rib height, too, at some point.
Yeah. Then the classic side-by-side. This is a Beretta side-by-side. One of the reasons why side-by-sides have gone away from competition, that was all you got before the early 20s when John Browning invented the superpose, the over and under stuff. All you had was side-by-side. Well, if you look at a side-by-side, you've got, not only do you have the rib, but you got the 2 barrels right next to it. And in some guns like this one, the rib is what's called swamped, where it's below the level of the barrels. You're dealing with all that in your view.
It's like looking down an aircraft carrier
Right,
deck.
exactly.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean,
Only
it's
it's
just
a
it's a lot
valley.
of it's a lot of stuff in there.
And the
so
top of the barrels is different
as you're
height.
trying to track and catch
Yeah.
up to a bird or something like that, you're going to lose sight of it. It's still very effective, but when you're talking smaller targets like clay targets, it's easy to lose some of them there. Side-by-sides have undergone a renaissance in the last few years,
Yeah.
though a lot of people are using them to hunt with.
And they are using them in competition. I mean, if you
Yeah.
look at some of the games, they will have
Yeah,
dedicated,
there are some dedicated
side-by-side
only
events.
games out
Right,
there, the
right.
Vintager Cup and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When you start getting into the break opens, you can also get a single barrel trap gun. This is a Browning BT-99. You notice the difference in the height of the rib compared to the other Browning.
From here to the
There.
barrel, and then from here to the barrel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, you look flat down the rib, but the barrel's pointed up.
Right. Because all of the clay target competition guns built specifically for competition are designed to be shot at rising targets.
For trap, for sure.
For trap guns,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So by doing this, like you said, the barrel, I'm looking down the rib, but the barrel then becomes pointed up. So as you're coming up to the target, it's going to hit where you're at. But again, designed specifically for trap shooting, single barrel. You only need one shot per target at trap, so you don't need anything more with that. So a little bit less expensive to do it that way than a over and under, because you only have the one barrel. But it does limit you if you decide to play other games.
Because one of the games I
Really
know
hard
in
to keep
trap
with one of
is
those.
doubles. And because trap, there's effectively three games. There's the 16-yard, and then there's handicap, and then doubles. And 16-yard is one shot. And then handicap is just backing up from 16-yard, 16 to 27, I believe,
Correct.
one shot. And then doubles is it all done from 16 yards, or is
Yes.
there handicap?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's done
So
from
doubles
16
is you're at the given post, and you get two targets that you're throwing.
throwing
At
one.
the same time.
Yes, yeah.
So a lot of people that shoot competition, they'll have a single barrel, and then either over and under barrel set that will fit on their same receiver for the doubles game,
Right.
or a separate gun set up as close to as possible to match this one there. When you start talking two barrel sets, a single barrel and a two barrel set, you start talking a lot of money. So again,
Lot of money.
You'll see, but you don't have to compete in the doubles game.
Right.
You can choose which ones you compete in. So you could get started with a single barrel and do okay, and then if you decide you want to go into the doubles or the other games, you can do something different. Again, not quite as high of the rib as the trap gun, because this is aimed at a sporting clays game. So you've got a little bit more flatter rib.
Got the
with
center bead.
Yeah, and you've got the
Yep.
center bead, which we'll talk about that a little bit later on why it's there with that. Over and unders are very expensive because you got two barrels and they have to be regulated. They've got to shoot to the same point of impact somewhere downrange. Depending on the manufacturer, it's a different distance, but you figure at least at 30 yards they should be hitting pretty much exactly at the same point. Doing that is an art, putting them together and brazing them together, bluing them, and getting them all back together
Right.
on the gun without
Right.
messing that up is one of the main reasons why the cost of over and unders is so high for a quality one.
And to give you an idea of the cost of over-unders, there's the cheap, crappy ones that go for maybe $600 or $700 bucks that you might find, and then they go up to 120,000 or so, give or
Just
take.
keep going.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the differences with the cheaper ones, most all of them you won't find with long barrels. They may be set up with the competition stock and porting and some other stuff with competition, but they'll max out at 28 inches. You
Right,
won't find
right.
the 32 or 34 inch
They're really designed for
barrels.
field shooting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.